One of my employees spent nearly an hour ranting about what a lazy idiot our owner is, without realizing that the lazy idiot was sitting right across from him, eating a sandwich and listening to every single word. My name is Alex, and for 16 years I've owned a packaging materials factory in a small American town in southern Ohio. When I was 25, I started here as a line operator, packing cardboard boxes on the conveyor and dreaming that one day I'd run my own plant. 10 years of hard work, training, and a few local college management courses later, I got the chance to buy the business from my mentor, Mr. Miller, who was retiring. He sold it to me because I knew every machine, every bolt, and every problem this place had. Since then, I've lived by one rule. If you want to understand your business, don't lock yourself in your office. I've never been a fan of suits and ties. I believe clothes don't define a person. So you'll usually find me in old jeans, a comfortable t-shirt, and sneakers, eating lunch from a paper bag, a homemade sandwich, an apple, sometimes yogurt. It keeps things relaxed between me and the workers. They don't tense up around the boss. That Thursday started like any other. The loud bell rang for the break, and people poured out of the shop floors, some to smoke, some to watch the news, others to argue about the latest baseball game. The cafeteria smelled of Maria's macaroni and fresh coffee. Safety posters hung on the walls beside flyers about our upcoming company picnic. I squeezed between tables, handed my lunch bag to Jenny, our new cashier, and looked for a free seat. At one long table sat 3 guys from the assembly line. I joined them. One was tall, bearded, wearing a Cleveland Browns cap. His badge said Dennis, Assembly Line B. Across from him were Mike, a strong-built brunette with a USMC tattoo, and Jason, a skinny redhead who always wore headphones, though not today. I greeted them, introduced myself as Alex from the office. I often do that to avoid creating distance. They nodded back. For the first few minutes, nothing hinted at drama. The guys debated the Reds versus Cubs game, argued about a missed foul in the 8th inning, laughed at the umpire. I nodded along. Break time chatter is therapy in factories, a way to vent, to breathe between shifts. But as it often happens, talk about sports drifted into talk about work. Jason complained about the new access system, requiring re-entry codes every 2 weeks. Mike mentioned the mandatory safety retraining. Then Dennis, who had been quiet till then, slammed down his burger and said loudly, "All that crap's because our boss won't come down here and see what we actually do. When was the last time any of you saw the owner? Never, right? He's probably up in some office counting money and joking with the board." My hands tightened around my cup. I forced myself to stay calm, curious to hear what came next. "Seriously," he went on, waving a plastic fork like a pointer. "I heard the guy shows up once a week in his fancy Mustang, parks close to the door, spends 2 hours in the conference room, and takes off while we're still busting our asses. You know he makes 20 times more than we do, and still stingy with bonuses." Jason asked carefully, "How do you know that?" Dennis smirked. "My girlfriend's in accounting. And come on, they're all the same. Owners, bosses, whatever. You think they care that we've been working 13 days straight? That my buddy's got back pain? Or that Makar's kid's sick and he didn't get a flexible schedule?" Mike's jaw clenched. I knew that we had arranged flexible hours for him when his wife was recovering from surgery. But Dennis wasn't after facts. He was after attention. He moved on to health insurance, claiming management had gold plans while workers got the scraps. Also false. We all had the same policy, and the company paid extra for dental coverage. He ranted about the new packaging robots, calling them a waste of money that should have gone to bonuses. He didn't realize those robots had cut injuries in half and increased output enough to raise pay for overtime. Minute by minute, his tirade grew louder. He mocked our new safety glasses. Only rich companies do that. Complained the coffee was brown water. We'd upgraded to real beans just months ago. And said our summer camp for employees' kids was PR, not care. I just listened. Behind the anger, there's always truth. Or pain. He mentioned unfair shift schedules, problems picking up kids from school. Real issues hidden under noise. I thought, maybe he's not just bitter. Maybe he has ideas buried under that frustration. 20 minutes later, Jason and Mike were glancing at their watches. They had to get back early, but Dennis kept going. Another worker, Aaron, joined us, and realizing what the talk was about, just muttered, "Here we go again." The break bell rang. People got up, cleared trays, grabbed hard hats. Dennis, finishing his burger, declared grandly, "If I ever meet the guy who owns this place, I'll tell him straight to his face he should quit." I folded my sandwich wrapper, stood, and asked casually, "By the way, which line do you work on?" "Assembly B," he said irritably. "Why do you care? You some office guy counting numbers?" I smiled, nodded, and thanked them for the chat. When they left, I knew I wasn't going back to my desk. Not yet. Back in the office, Linda, our operations director, looked up from her laptop. "How was lunch?" she asked. "Enlightening," I said. "Find Dennis from line B and his supervisor, Russell. I want a meeting this afternoon." Linda knew me well enough not to ask why. By 3 p.m., we were all in the small conference room. Me, Linda, Russell, a fair, respected supervisor, and Dennis, who froze when he saw me. His face went white. "Dennis," I began calmly, "I'm Alex, the owner of this plant, And yes, I come down here often, just not in a suit. Today during lunch I heard you talking about management. I'd like to understand what's bothering you. He swallowed hard. I just speak my mind sometimes. Feels like we're undervalued. That's fair, I said. Let's look at facts. You said you work harder than everyone and never get bonuses, but according to our reports, your productivity is 20% below average. Why do you think that is? He blinked. My machine's faulty? Russell raised an eyebrow. Maintenance says no. You refused checks and said you'd handle it yourself. Dennis fidgeted. I kept my tone even. Look, this isn't about blaming you. I want to fix problems if they exist. Give me concrete examples. He tried, mentioning a worker denied a day off for his child's birthday. Russell corrected him. He was offered a shift swap and refused. Dennis claimed the line was unsafe. Linda showed the OSHA stats. Our injury rate was half the industry average. When he ran out of steam, I spoke plainly. You make $23 an hour, plus efficiency bonuses. Yes, I earn more, but I've worked since I was 17, took loans, bought this plant myself. I respect every person here because I was one of you once. I told him about the accident 10 years ago that changed everything. A worker removed a safety guard to speed up work and lost 2 fingers. That's why I insisted on strict safety protocols and new guards. We saved hands and lives since then. Then, I gave him a choice. We'd put him in a 3-month improvement program with mentorship and training. If he reached 90% efficiency, great. Promotion and bonus. If not, we'd part ways respectfully, with severance. He had 5 minutes to decide. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll try. Over the next months, he worked under Mark, a veteran operator with 20 years of experience. Mark taught him discipline, rhythm, and teamwork. Slowly, Dennis improved. Fewer breaks, more focus. 3 months later, Russell's report landed on my desk. 95% efficiency. 0 absences. No lateness. Dennis had even proposed a sensor idea for our packing line that reduced defects by 30%. One afternoon, he approached me after an open forum meeting. Thank you, he said quietly. I didn't think you really listened, but I get it now. Work changes when you change. We talked about his family, his mortgage plans, his wife's recovery. He said he wanted to join our workplace improvement committee. I agreed immediately. Soon, his story spread around the plant. Rumors exaggerated it, that I'd fired him on the spot, or made him cry, or rewarded him with a raise. The truth was simpler and better. We turned conflict into progress. We fixed parking lights, improved coffee, sped up roof repairs, and launched an Employee of the Month program with a paid day off. We also started an anonymous feedback portal. Every message guaranteed a reply. I began doing both quiet and open walkthroughs, some incognito, some official. The combination gave me both truth and trust. 6 months later, productivity was up 12%, injuries down 5%, turnover cut in half. At our annual picnic, families thanked us for the flexible schedules and fitness club program. At the grill, I overheard 2 new hires joking. They say if you talk trash about the boss, he'll appear behind you. Yeah, the other laughed. And if you work hard, he'll pat you on the back himself. I smiled. Humor. The healthiest part of culture. This story happened in the US, but its lesson is universal. Whether in Ohio or Atirau, whether it's a factory or a tech startup, there will always be complaints. Some are real, and leaders must listen and act. Others come from misunderstanding, and that's when transparency matters most. If you don't tell your people the truth, someone else will invent it for you. Openness builds trust. But employees must also be ready to listen and learn. Criticism without solutions is just noise. True leadership isn't punishing disloyalty. It's turning negativity into growth. Dennis, once the loudest critic, became part of the improvement team. And I, once a silent observer, learned to speak openly. Our company got better because we faced problems instead of hiding them. Thank you for reading this long American story. If you enjoyed real workplace dramas with lessons and unexpected endings, subscribe, like, and comment. Tell me what stories you'd like next. Your feedback shapes content that inspires, teaches, and makes people think.